Well, first of all, thank you everybody for being here. I made a handout in Dutch so the people who can speak English can read along. The handout contains about 20% of the entire presentation. For the last 2 years I've been working on a project called Agropolis. It was a part of a competition which is called Vertical Cities Asia. Vertical Cities Asia was a competition based on high density. The brief was to put 100,000 people on 1 square kilometer in a city called Chengdu, which looks like this. Chengdu is in the region of Sichuan. Sichuan is a province in China, and Chengdu is the capital city of Sichuan. It's lying in the rice bowl of China. That's because it looks like this. It's very green and very fertile, and yeah, the land is very, very great for agriculture. So the argument, after the research, I found out that the population in China is growing and growing, and especially the urban population is growing. This is because a lot of people from the rural land, a lot of farmers, are migrating towards the city because they think they have more chance in the city. And the cities are growing, especially horizontally, and they swallow all the land, the fertile land. So you can see that after the last decades, there's a deficit in the agricultural land to feed the population, and even 12% of China is undernourished at the moment, which is 150 million people. Because this lack of land, agricultural land, China is flying and shipping a lot of food to China, which has a lot of problems, infrastructurally, but also CO2 emissions and fuel consumption. The problem with this is that because of the fuel consumption, the food prices aren't stable. They grow and shrink with the price of the oil. And because the oil prices are rising, the food prices will rise as well, which is a very big problem, because 33% of the expenditure of the Chinese people is spent on food, and primary thing to live. So when the food price doubles because of the oil, this amount will rise very quickly, and they don't have any money left for anything else. So I tried to put it all together in a scheme. You can see that in the year 2000 you got this amount of farmers and only this amount of businessmen and urban people. It's now 2012, it's about 2013, it's about 50-50. And the prospect is that in 2050 there are like 2 times as many urban people than rural people, which is not very sustainable, and you can see that the pollution will rise. So my intentions with the Agropolis, with the project, is to preserve agricultural land, reduce the deficit of agricultural land, and especially local production, so they don't have to ship and fly all the food all over the world, and an organic way of farming, so that they don't exhaust the fertile soil, that it can last forever. The advantages of local production is that it consumes less fuel, more stable fuel prices, etc., etc. So the reasons for the farmers to come to the city is because they don't have a lot of they don't have a lot of yield. They have to almost sustain themselves. They don't have a lot of money. They cannot do very much. There are not many amenities in the small villages, so they migrate towards the city with a hope to start a new life. But they don't have a Hukou, which is some sort of a passport. And if you're a rural person, you don't have rights in the city, and you end up in sort of slums like this. This is actually on a rooftop. This is in Hong Kong actually, but yeah, tapping. They're illegal there, and they don't have any rights. They're living in very small places. So back to Chengdu. This is Chengdu. The competition site is here in the south. And if we don't do anything, I expect the city to grow like this, just like other booming cities in China. And I don't think this is very healthy city. So I want to stimulate growth along the urban fingers, so that there's a lot of space within these urban fingers for greenery and agriculture and to let the city breathe. So the Agropolis is situated on the edge, which is on the edge of the urban land and the rural land, and it has the possibility to harvest and collect all the food and other stuff from the rural land. To let this growth model along the fingers work, I need a high-speed rail to connect all these fingers, so that there's still a lot of infrastructure possible. And there's also more like a leisure road along this ring, where you can walk or bicycle through the fields, and you can take the metro or the high-speed train back, or you can maybe make the entire round in just like 200, 300 kilometers. And it will be connected to the public transport as well, the metro. So this is what it would look like. I really tried to put all the wholesale, distribution, secondary processing, etc. Tried to put it all in the Agropolis, which also has a lot of work for the people. People can work there as well. And I want to cut all the travel costs and expenses and fuel consumption with it. So people live and work almost at the same place. They live in this Agropolis, in this city, where they have all the amenities of the city, but can still work with their own profession. So actually it's going to be a place for farmers to live and also work. To continue the story of high density, I want to strive to a form of compactness and not a sprawl. So I want to make a stacked city with modules. But there's a difference between a horizontal city and a vertical city, because a horizontal city is flat, and vertical is more like 3D. So the city center is more like a spherical center, and here's more in the conventional way it's more just in the center. But also the periphery is different, because the ground floor is actually kind of a periphery of the city. I don't want to have a lot of dead ends. The normal way to produce high density is a form of towers, where you can go up, and if you want to go to the next tower you have to go down first and then take the other elevator. I want to have some sort of people flow continuity within this building. So I made a lot of models to explore the possibilities. And I thought a module might be handy, which is efficient of shape, and is also stackable. So for the efficiency, I looked at some sort of mathematical forms, and I took away those who are hard to stack. And if you want to stack them also in 3 dimensions, I thought the cube and the cuboid are the most interesting ones. But I chose for the cube because it's more rigid. When I started out, the cube was about 40 by 40 meters, so which is quite big. It's bigger than most buildings in Holland, with possibilities to stack, and which results in a city which looks like this. But the problem with this was actually the amount of daylight entering the cubes in the interior city spaces. So I made an efficiency study to see which was possible. So I cut holes into the cube, which was very solid at first, and I took some forms to study. All those 3 cubes have the same amount of voids, but different configuration. And as you can see, the more holes you make, the darker it becomes. Which is because the narrowness, it's better to make 1 big hole than like 9 smaller holes or 4 smaller holes. So I also tested with models. So I also transformed the cube a little bit. I tried to find the perfect shape, the perfect form. And actually, when I came back to the most basic kind of thing, actually, it has a very pure form, and it triggered me. I thought this might be the solution. So for the density, I had this pure form, and I explored it a little bit more, and I tried to find an optimum between the openness and density. So to let enough daylight enter and have enough space left to make it efficient. And when I found the dimension of 72 or 72 meters, I thought it might be very, very good shot. It also has a potential of long enough range for fire escape. So instead of a 40 by 40 cube, I scaled it up to 72 by 72 meters. So it became a very, very huge module. So I also explored how to stack. Actually, for this module to work, in every corner there has to be a core, a vertical an elevator shaft to work, and all the 4 corners have to be supported. So there's no overhang or whatever. It's just stacked, and all the 4 corners are supported. And also there is a difference in the module shape. I started with only a square cube, but then there was a U and also an L form or an I or double I. So I made some variations, and with this I started to build a city with these modules. A city actually which is on the edge of agricultural land, so it really cuts through the agricultural land. And how does this city actually grow? I think I want to maintain the density from the start, so I wanted to start a small part, and then after a few years you can let it grow partly like this. Only this already contains 40,000 people, so I'm almost there already. So I'm trying to zoom in this part. So there's a system of parking underneath, which with on top an infrastructure with a 4-lane road, one direction this way, 4-lane road one direction this way, and one in the middle which cuts right through the city with more cars and also bicycles and people walking. And this is more city street, which this is for the very heavy traffic and the trucks and all the food which is gathered. Then the layer on top, this is the landscape. So this is on the edges, this is the farmland, and I want on the places where there is a park possible, I want to let the landscape enter the city. So I also have the height marks are unchanged actually. So on the ground floor, the program, this is where Chengdu city is on the right. We enter the city over here with the high-speed train. This is the city square, education. There are silos on the side, the farmer dwellings, market square, kind of stuff. So this is what it looks like. And this is where he works. So I want this Agropolis to work together with the farm fields. There's some sort of a biomass power plant where all the trash, the leaves and the culms of the plants can go to and burned for electricity and heat and hot water, which can be used by the dwellings. These dwellings house-vest the farmers, and these farmers can work on the land again. So this is the site. You see the high-speed rail over here, and you enter the place over here. And this is like some sort of main entrance where you can enter the course. You can enter the city. You can go up with the elevators. So the elevators work like this. The black lines are the high-speed elevators, which stop at the ground floor at the first floor of the second cube and the first floor of the third cube. There are only 3 cubes high actually, which is 72 times 3, which is already 220 meters high. So, and this is enough. And there's also a slow elevator which stops at every floor. And if you want to go to this place, you take a high-speed elevator to the first stop, and then you change elevators, and then you go up with a stop elevator. This is the program. On the ground floor you have a lot of food processing, but more heavy machinery, office functions, also public entrances and that kind of stuff. Then on the roofs you have some sort of a sky park, garden, also shopping streets, that kind of stuff. And higher in the Agropolis there are the most of the residential, the dwellings, where people live. This is what it looks like. The elevator cores, they get smaller once you come up higher to increase the efficiency. This is how the structure looks. I used reinforced concrete with steel beams and a metal deck, which is very nice because you can place the metal decking system and you can walk on it right away, which improves the building speed. And it's also very light actually. It's very good for my building because it's very big and very high. I use a Vierendeel truss which has all stiff corners, which is a very strong way to. Well, it's not the strongest way, but it's very nice because you have all the right beams. You don't have any triangular beams which can stand in your way. And then secondary beams, and then it's going to be like this. Elements, facades. I have a facade of 1200 wide, and then 1 floor high. First I thought of maybe some kind of aluminium panels, but I explored it a little bit more and I wanted to, there can also be panels from bamboo or wood, which is produced locally, and it's a lot more maintenance, but in China people are not very expensive, and I think a lot of maintenance is not a very big problem in China. So this is what it looks like, the facade, and this is when you look out of the elevator core over the rooftop terrace with all the cubes in front of you. And this is some sort of a typical office floor plan, which is what is interesting about this. Maybe just when I filled it in, it's actually pretty efficient. Yeah, I got 172 workspaces, 9 meeting rooms, 36 toilets, only on 1 floor. And in 1 cube there are 10 of these floors and 10 more like tower floors where you only have the corner parts. So this is on top, more like a shopping street, which I told you about. Well, this is a typical dwelling floor plan. Dwellings are not that big, but in China they are not very wealthy, and it's also for farmers. So I chose to make a lot of smaller dwellings, but there can also be a lot of penthouse or whatever. This is the interior of the dwelling. See, they're not very wealthy, but they're happy. This is the section of the building. This is the big corridor, which was in the middle at first, but I took it up with now you have the natural daylight, and it's a double height. In some ways you have an extra stairs where you can enter private dwellings over here. Sometimes you have like double height dwellings, or maybe 3 double height dwellings like this. So this is the night view of the double high corridor. So this is the detail with the facade, how the two connect. This part contains 16 dwellings, which can be copied 4 times, and also it has 10 levels. So it's 40 times 16 is 640 dwelling units, and then for the tower part, it only contains 4 dwellings, times 4 corners, times 10 floors is also times 40, is 160 dwellings. So 800 dwellings per cube, with an average of 2.5 persons per cube. This cube contains 2,000 persons. 100,000 people divided by 2,000 is 50 cubes, only dwelling to fit all the 100,000 people in there. The brief was another 50 cubes of program for office, leisure, education, that kind of stuff. Of course, not all the dwellings are square, so they're also L-shaped and I-shaped. So I calculated like a 30% loss. So 65, 130 cubes to contain everything they asked for. The part that I worked out was 0.26 square kilometers. It contained 22 cubes. If I do that like 6 times, I have all the 130 cubes I need, and I have a density of 65,300 people per square kilometer. If I compare that to Chengdu has only 3,600 people per square kilometer, and they would need 26.8 square kilometers to house these 100,000 people, and I did it in 1.5 square kilometers. On the other hand, if I fit all Chengdu in a like Agropolis kind of density, I only would need 20 square kilometers, but they exceed the 2,000. They had like 2,100. So with the density of the Agropolis, all this could have been green space, productive land, and not swallowed by the city. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.